Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Narita McInnes.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Narita McInnes. It is so awesome to be here with you as always. And today is another very exciting day because I have a very special guest that I'm so excited to be chatting with. Now, I've written some stuff down for this beautiful woman because she has a background in many things. She has been an apprentice jockey to breeding and training thoroughbreds. She's traveled the world. She's been a personal trainer and world-class athlete representing Canada in the Worlds Sport Aerobics. Yes, that's the one. She's a sports performance coach. She was 2 Olympic gold medal figure skaters, NHL, NBA, and weekend warriors, acupuncturist, a global educator and practitioner of frequency medicine. There is, of course, so much more. It's just a big mouthful. Oh, my gosh. So please join me in welcoming this incredible woman. She is the beautiful inside and out, Gemma Gee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And when you read those types of things or when you talk about those or bring attention to it, it's like, wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff in one lifetime, right?
Oh, when I saw that and I read that on one of your posts, I was like, oh my gosh, she's like lived 100 lifetimes in this. So talk to me all about, first of all, obviously the start of a podcast, there's so much to someone and all that sort of stuff. But for people who don't know you and have never met you, perhaps we can start there.
That is the question. Where to start, right? Man. I guess it goes back to the important things that for anybody is our origins, right? And for a long time, for me, I really struggled with, I guess, where I came from. And I am part of perhaps all this achieving or whatever in the world was, trying to fit in. Because in my early years, I grew up on a farm on the west coast of Taranaki and here in New Tarini or New Zealand. I look back at that and how lucky I was to have had the upbringing I had and how actually important it is to me at this point in my life as well to be able to be honoring that because of we show up on this earth where we're meant to be and with all the information, the wisdom and the knowledge like inside of us, right? And it took me this big roundabout journey around the world to really even appreciate that, I suppose. So grew up on a farm, one of 5 girls, so was kind of always the farm hand, the farm kid, the farm boy, the closest to a boy that my dad had. If there was any chance opportunity to get into, get my hands in, get dirty, I was there, whether it was, riding motorbikes, feeding out, milking cows. I talked my dad into, mum and dad going away for the weekend. Grandma came out and stayed and looked after us kids. And I, looked after the farm and milked the cows for an entire weekend, like twice a day. I was only about 10 years old, for crying out loud. Yeah. But it was just, it was just in the heart of me was this, this farm, the animals, the nature, just being in it. It was heaven. So I found I inherently fell into horses or just that was within my coding as well, within my past experience, my past incarnations. I knew how to ride horses before I even knew what horses were in a way. And mum always used to say to me, well, you were really young, like probably 2 years old or so, and I was speaking about the government horses in the forest and the ranges, like all this stuff that how could I have even possibly have known? And so, fast forward, I finally was able to talk my dad into allowing me to have my own horse, and it went from there. And that's where my love for horses has always been. It was inherent. But anyway, I got into high levels, taught myself how to jump into show jumping, eventing and things like that. And it was that all got put on hold, interestingly enough. It was like came to this big kind of stop when I got pregnant at 16. And so that was a really interesting time to experience that. That's a whole nother story as well. But it ended up, that took me away from horses for a wee bit. I always felt that I would come back to the horses, and that I felt this honor. I never ever had a moment in time where I felt like I would let that a question that I was going to bring my daughter into the world. You can't explain it. I remember it so clearly, and it was just, that was it. I was going to bring her in. There was a sense of responsibility, a sense of accountability, the sense of never ever a doubt in my mind that was the right thing to do. However, society, of course, at the time wasn't quite so open to all of that, and so it ended up, that was probably one of my biggest ended up being the source of a biggest lessons for me, of all sorts of lessons. But anyhow, I ended up having this intermission, shall we say, when I had my daughter. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And then I ended up into racing, and raced for a few years with the legendary trainer, Laurie Laxon. For those that are in the Southern Hemisphere here, like, he is legends beyond legends. He's no longer with us. But he taught me, so much. And it's so much tenacity, so much around, making things happen, so much, just, yeah, it was an incredible experience. So I was very lucky for that. However, about 3.5 years into it, so I never completed my apprenticeship for many reasons. I'm a bit tall. So, I struggle with weight and things like that. And I got to the point where I probably spent about 6 months or so being bulimic, just so I can meet my race weight, and wouldn't eat for days, leading up to a race. I had it down to a T. If I, chewed a piece of gum, I would put on a certain amount of weight because of the saliva acids and juices and things. So it was just stupid. And I remember one moment going, you know better than this, right? This is just dumb. This is not cool. And then it coupled with, I can remember being in the gates at the start of a race, and I just had this image, like I was looking down the track and there was chaos around. There were colts going crazy, there were helicopters spinning, and having trouble loading horses, and there's just so much noise. It was so intense. And I looked down this racetrack, and my daughter came to mind. She was only, I don't know, she was probably three and a half or so at the time. And I just was like, nah, this is it. This is my last race. So I can't do it. I never finished it. There's so many thrills within that. That's again a whole nother journey and a garden path to go down in terms of what that's like. But the thunder of the hooves is still in my heart every time I hear it. It just it brings me alive. So I ended up exiting that, and then went into breaking and training of horses. And I suppose for me, this is where a lot of my other superpowers, if you will, that we all hold, but things like telepathy, understanding how to talk to other beings, to be able to communicate without words, all of those things is really where I suppose I learned that or experienced that in its full. But I was still, running at this point. I was probably 22, I think around 22 or something like that. And I might have been a little bit younger. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I was running. I was running from myself. I was running from my situation. I was running from the shame. I was running from the guilt. I just wanted to be somewhere where I could start over. I could be someone that nobody knew who I was. And I didn't have all of these heavy, what I felt, the weight of the world at the time, the burden of what I'd experienced as a teenage mum. I always, sometimes it's difficult for me to talk about this stuff because I don't want to, I never want to come across as a victim, right? And I never want to come across as that my family weren't there for me, because they were, but I don't feel that they had the skills or the emotional support themselves to be able to support me through what I was going through as well. And there was a sense of fear around the loss of my life as well. You know, this is how I guess it was viewed from them. So I've always throughout all of that, because it was such a catalyst into a very fight, flight, fright state for myself. You know, I've always been, like I said, I've always been very mindful of not trying to place blame, because it was no one else's. I got myself into the position I was, and it was scary. So there was, I was in that state. And then just before so because of the sense of like wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to run, and in that fight, flight, fright mode, I ended up moving to North America. That's, you know, where I went to Canada. But before that, I was probably a couple of years after this teen mum experience that I had. I was actually a part of a home invasion as well, where I was held at gunpoint, where my mum, my dad, we were all held, tied up for several hours at gunpoint. And so you've got trauma upon trauma sort of a thing. And I didn't even know what was happening from an emotional perspective. I was just trying to survive.
Wow.
So yeah, there was these layerings and layerings. And I guess, you know, you go all full circle on that. And what that really taught me was that so many of us are tripped into these heavily traumatic states through things and events that happen in this life. But it goes beyond that. It's almost like there's a linking into, and it's part of a deeper experience that we've forgotten about. So looking at our cosmic, our galactic traumas as well, and going back to understanding our original, you know, our original origins. So, you know, you get tripped into these traumatic states that are linked back with all these past incarnations and things like that. But it's actually all you know, what I found out and figured out, it's actually an attempt to stop you from actualizing and realizing your potential on who you are in this and what you're here to do. But unlike maybe some people who kind of come in and out of that real fast, I was tripped into that state for probably 20 years easily. And so the consequence of that was that I spent, you know, a big chunk of my life trying to fit in again, try to be accepted by society again. Whereas now I'm like, you know what, I look back, I've always been different. I've always come in, you know, I came into this world with a whole nother viewpoint, a whole nother perspective, a whole nother reason of being here. So there's a lot of blanks to fill in there, but you know, wow. So yeah, there's that sort of part of my horse journeys and how I got into that. So where do we want to go with there? Because there's so much to
there's so much. And I think people can relate to what you were saying, to the point about you know, trying to be accepted and trying to fit in. I think a lot of us have done that. I know, like I have. Everyone has tried to. And when you're a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, it's never going to happen anyway. And you kind of have to laugh at yourself, go, why would I even bother?
Well, exactly. However, you know, as we know, the entire structure of our society is built upon this, built upon people doubting themselves, built upon people looking and outsourcing their self-worth. I mean, this is what society capitalizes on, to be able to keep people stuck in that, and for not stepping into or actually diving into and going into themselves and understanding that, you know, we're so much more powerful than what we realize. And that's what my journey in the medical realm really has led me to, through going and being in it for so long, and in so many different, you know, aspects of it. So like you'd said, I started off into personal training and into fitness. Now, that's a funny story, and how I even got into that, I guess, because I never thought I would. I always used to hate things like gyms and stuff like that. Because growing up, like, as you know, on the farm and racing and things, I was riding 30 horses a day. That was all I needed
Wow.
for my amount of fitness and things. And in racing, or show jumping and anything related to that, it's far more arduous than what people realize. And so, and I'd rather be outside. I'd rather be animals, rather be nature. I don't want to be, you know, in a confined sort of space and go and do that sort of stuff. But when I went to Canada, I moved there. Again, another sort of rogue move in a way, because most people, or most of my peers at the time, you know, they all buzzed off and done their OE over to the UK. And it wasn't something that I had the liberty to do in a way, because I couldn't take my daughter there. She was 5 years old at the time, so I couldn't drag her to London. That wouldn't be fair on her. It wouldn't be fair on everybody who was out there to have that experience either. So I opted for different. I'd met a woman through racing, in fact, a Canadian woman who came out, and she worked on the farm, or at the stables, and we became friends. And she'd always said, you know, if you ever want to come over, go to Canada. So I did. But now I'm in a place where I don't have any of this, right? I don't have any horses. And my first introduction to the big metropolis, to these big cities, was sort of one that took me a little bit off guard. I met a woman who had just recently been raped at a party.
Oh
I know, and I had such an innocent upbringing. I always say this. I was, you know, this naive little country girl thinking everybody's got these big hearts, everybody's out there to do good in the world, and you know, you can trust everybody. And wow, it was such an eye-opener for me. And that's where that changed a lot for me in terms of myself, and I all of a sudden, you know, really understood that I needed to be able to, I wanted fitness for different reasons. I didn't want it for the aesthetics. I didn't want it for any of that. I wanted it so that if I have to run for my life, I was able to do that. And so I got into, it's really crazy. I got into group fitness classes, and I loved them. Absolutely loved them. You know, I've got a background of dance and things like that as well. So it was just so much fun. And so I ended up being that person in the back of the class to the person in the front of the class. Yeah, that person.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I reckon I could do this. So the woman I approached, she was just so supportive, and she put me in the right direction. Long story short, I got into that, and then I needed more. I loved what I was able to bring to people, but I needed something that was going to keep me, you know, take me to a different level, or take me more interested. So that's when I decided, yeah, I'm going to be a sports aerobics chick, you know, smile while I do a one arm, one leg push up, you know, you know, stupid shit, right? And yeah, so I went down that road, and of course loved it and was good at it, and was lucky enough to represent Canada at the Worlds, which took me to Lithuania of all places.
Wow.
And yeah, from there it all sort of expanded. But like I said, it was never an area I felt like I would step into, because I always wanted to be working with the animals. I always wanted to be, you know, in the veterinarian world or anything like that. So anyhow, where did that take me from there? Wow, there's so much we could go into in my time in Canada. As you know, I got sort of exposed, I suppose, to the Canadian mafia. I've seen a lot of stuff in my time.
Wow.
Which allowed me to see, you know, through a lot of the bullshit in terms of, you know, even in the immediate world that's presented around us. And now, of course, I now have a whole another level of understanding, and through that. But yeah, eventually I moved to Florida, and, you know, spent 5 years there. And at this point, everything, you know, was to do with around to what I could do for my daughter. You know, she was at those really everything was about her. That was what my commitment was. If I was going to bring you into this world, I was going to do the best that I could with what I had at that time. And so we'd moved to Florida, and she was a beautiful athlete herself, and she got into figure skating of all things in Florida, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I introduced her to it in Canada at the time because I assumed everybody in Canada knew how to ice skate, but they don't. Not everybody does. But I never wanted her to be the one left out at the party that, you know, when there's a frozen lake around and everyone's getting their ice skates out, like, yeah, let's go. So that's where it sort of started. But it was in Florida that she became really good at it. And of course, that's what, because of the facility we're in, because we were placed, it opened this door and this opportunity to be able to work with these high level figure skaters that were coming in to the facility simply because of the coaches that were there. And I was big into rehab and prehab and sports performance and things like that at the time. I didn't really have any formal education. This was stuff that I, had just been drawn into, and it became a passion of mine. And again, very lucky to be mentored by some incredible mentors, some of the, top athletic trainers and therapists that are in North America. And I was lucky to be, under their wings. So I learned so much, and I've always said, those that come into my space for whatever reason, I mean, they're my greatest teachers. They teach me, everything the most. And then I guess 2007 came along, and there was the big crash that was happening. And that was really evident in the States. I mean, there were so many things that I was exposed to there. The big pharma, the corruption within the big pharma was right in front of your face all the time over in the States. Yeah. And more so, like things that I'd never really sort of fathomed would be possible to happen were happening. So I was really exposed to that there at the time as well. And then, of course, this big crash, and I was like, right, we got to get out of here. And weirdly enough, though, and I guess this comes back to, again, people, believing in themselves and starting to understand ourselves on a deeper level. I always knew I was going to come back at a certain time, because when I left New Zealand, it was like, I'll be 5 years, 10 years max. I'm telling you, it was almost 10 years to the day that I came back home.
Wow.
And again, it was this weird thing. It was like, it was in a very short period of time. It was like, I've got to go home. And my husband at the time, I said to him, I said, we got to go. I got to go home. And we were deciding which way to go. And I said, I'm going back to New Zealand. You're either coming or you're not. It was sort of that sort of situation. But yeah, I had this strong, like, massive pull to come back home. And so upon doing so, I'm still kind of, trying to fit in to be accepted by society, to be accepted by family or whatever. And that's when I went into the whole academic indoctrination pathway, and went through all that journey. But
Yep, mate, you have had the life, and I just know we're not even like touching the surface. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much there. And you said you went into the medical system, like, because something that I love and so resonate with what you say is, like, we have everything inside ourselves to restore anything. And I guess for you, going down these paths, like, sometimes I feel, and I'm sure you feel the same, is like we go through these things in order to learn who we are and to find our strength and to be able to stand in our power, and to be able to, just see life through the eyes of who we truly are. I guess it would be cool to talk about some of that experience of you in the system, and then coming out and sort of just really, because I know that you spruik this all the time, and it's so what we need to hear, what people, to stand in our power and know that. And I know you've done acupuncture as well. You do frequency medicine. I love frequency. It's just, everything is frequency. So yeah, like, maybe just talk a bit about that as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I I definitely love to speak about this. This is stuff that fascinates me, and also I know is so important for people to start, seeing things from different perspectives and realizing the power that we hold within. Because again, the medical system is such a fundamental structure within society, and everybody cares about their health, because without your health, you have nothing. Health is wealth. And it's not really until things start to fall apart that people are, wanting to actually do something about it. But when, I guess for me, but the knowing the ins and outs of the medical system is actually, how we start to step away and we start creating, systems that are better built for us, systems that actually suit us and what we're here to do. So I'll start with, when I went back into the medical, or I went into the formalize my formalize my formalize my education, I suppose. And I went into physiotherapy. So that's where I first went into, after the first year. So this is part of my journey as well. Like, I didn't even really think I didn't have any self-belief. I didn't believe anything that I was smart enough or anything like that. And I know that as I went, into one of the more academic programs that is in the medical programming, which it is, you have to be of a certain sort of whatever it is to get in. So I was lucky enough to get in, but I had to. Okay, so going back. So what happened was I went into, decided to formalize education. And again, this is part of me still trying to fit in, right? Still trying to, get, be part of society. Or be recognized or whatever it was. And a lot of it was actually driven behind being able to come under the umbrella system that we have here, which is our ACC system. And so to do that, you have to be a registered practitioner, blah, blah, blah. So where I go into this 4-year degree, right? And it was after I got my first assignments back, and I had to look over my student number like many times and go, surely not. Now, is this me? Is this really me? Because it was the highest, whatever. It doesn't even matter. But it was just one of those moments that I realized that I'm actually not. I'm not stupid, so dumb. But it was like, wow, okay, all right, according to these guys anyway. So I actually ended up doing my UMATs, my undergrad medical entrance exams as well, and got into being accepted into the medical degree into Auckland University, but then went, actually, this isn't, like, there was something inside me that this is not the road for me. This is not the road for me to go down. So I continued with my physiotherapy and went into that. Now, shortly after that, I went into my postgrad with acupuncture, and this is where one of the first sort of penny drops, or these kind of hang on a minute, big red flag after the fact was when I came back into the postgrad program, and they said to me on the very first day, they said to the whole group, they said, well, I guess you realize that what we taught over the last 4 years isn't entirely true. And I was like, what the, hang on a minute, like this is wrong on so many levels, right? Anyway, so I go through my acupuncture, and I it's just, acupuncture has got such ancient roots, right? And when we start to understand what our meridians truly are, they are our dragon lines. They are the fiber optics that are actually within us. Side note, right? There's an entire light body structure within us that they do not teach. They do not talk about. They omit from any part of the program whatsoever. And there's a huge reason behind that, because as soon as we start to understand that, it's game over for them. So anyway, I'll continue on the journey so you can kind of see a little bit more of how I've come to where I've come to, and why I know what, this to be true. So I go through, I get my acupuncture, and I open up my own clinic. So I have my own clinic for about 5.5, 6 years or so. And it was really within that time that I got to be able to see the depths of the medical realm and for what it really is, and how the layering that effects that are within it in terms of the multidisciplinary, the so-called care or what have you, is limited. It's incredibly limited. Our Western medical structure is built upon crisis management. It's fabulous for that. You know, if you need acute pain relief, it's fabulous for that. If you need surgery, this is what it's for. But it's got absolutely no place in chronic health management or managing health, absolutely, whatsoever, on any level. And that was after I'd gone through having the practice of my own. And then I actually, it was during that time, this is an important note, it was during that time I started speaking about Big Pharma, and I spoke about the opioid pandemic that is, you know, in amongst us. It is all around us. I was seeing this in my own clinic. I was seeing, you know, handfuls of patients that would come in every week that have been misdiagnosed, is therefore mismanaged, like overprescribed, and it's always a trilogy of medication, you know. So it was very similar to it was mirroring what I saw and experienced in Florida with the big Oxycontin issues and things like that. And so it was in that time when I had my clinic that I did spoke to the papers around that. And that was because I had read a story, you know, a common story where a young individual or an individual is unwittingly got addicted into the synthetic pain medications, and through an experience within the system, and then they were obtaining it, you know, on the black market, and she overdosed. Like, she was 18, 19, and I was like, this shouldn't be happening. No. Like, this should not be happening. And so I contacted the guy who wrote that story, and then you know, I shared with him my story, and he said, would you allow me to publish it? So that came out in the papers. But I guess it was at the peak for me of, you know, this pinnacle point in my time where I was under so much stress, and then this coming out in the papers, it had such a very divided response, and I wasn't equipped at the time in terms of standing in my truth and standing in my power to be able to deal with it. So I just wanted to, like, shrink away from it as well, because there was, within the own community, it was there's that, you know, you shouldn't be talking about this stuff, right? Whereas I'm on the other side of going, well, if you are aware of it and you're not saying anything about it, then you're complicit. So you tell me which side of the line you want to stand on, right? So, and then not long after that, probably 5 or 6 weeks after that, it all kind of blew up anyway. There was a huge radio interview on Radio New Zealand between a Sydney Herald reporter as well, saying exactly the same thing as what I was saying. So really kind of, that was a big confirmation for me. Although I was still kind of like I just want to hide under that rock and, you know, not be bombarded by all this attack from people who didn't like, we're happy in the la 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 land and the cognitive dissonance, would rather not talk about it, sort of stuff, you know. But anyway, what that did for me is that's what tripped me into, I went, okay, can't fight Big Pharma on your own. So I searched for more. And because of my knowledge in acupuncture and understanding energy, I had this opportunity to explore frequency medicine. And as soon as I saw it, which is, it's a wearable technology, the one that I got immersed into, and that I still provide for my people as well. So it's a wearable device, you wear it on you, it's very specific to our neurological signals as well. And I started seeing things that shouldn't happen, you know, the impossible become possible. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, now, like, I need to understand this on a fundamental level. And that's what took me really into the big deep dive. This is where it was my extracurricular knowledge and experiences that led me to the point of understanding that our medical system is set upon Newtonian principles. It's set upon, you know, physical and trying to change the physical with physical. It's also tied up, as we understand, you know, once you dive into it and you understand how convoluted and intertwined it is with the financial system, with the bankers, with, you know, those that are puppeteering the world. They know that we have the ability to heal ourselves. They know we hold the power to restore ourselves from any disease that we create, because we create it all. And I mean, and this is so many people before us have shown, proven this. There's evidence for all of this, yet it's still not even really known about, you know, or talked about in terms of the medical system. They don't teach this stuff. In fact, you know, people have left their roles as professors because of they were forced to teach things that they knew they'd proven was not true anymore. So that experience, I guess the frequency experience, brought me into the world of into the dark world of the medical system, because this opened up a door for people who had tried everything, who had been everywhere, who had everything removed from them that was, you know, possible to do without completely destroying them, or had, you know, gone through every single medication that there was, and there was nothing left that they could do. And that's what they would come to me and say, this is what I've been told. Only to look back in the history and you see, yeah, that's where they got you. That's where they got you. That's where they hooked you. That's where they got you wrong. That's where they instilled fear. That's where they you know, gave you a prescription that was not necessary and told you need to be on it for a whole lifetime. So I spent a long time in that chronic health realm and seeing anything and everything over about 7 years of being, you know, working within frequencies. And eventually I I got to the point probably where I'm at now, or I've been for the last little while, of going, okay, we got to get further upstream. We can't be these ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, because it's incredibly draining from a practitioner's perspective as well. But it's that, you know, there's so much unnecessary illness in the world. It's a big money maker, you know. This is what we've got to understand for it. And a lot of people, I always say, I'm sure that those that get into the system and go through that indoctrination pathway, they have the greatest of intentions when they enter it. And then because, you know, the education system is designed to dumb us all down anyway, right? And then we hook into the ego, the stations of identity of the prestigeness of coming, you know, having a degree of a certain university or whatever. We just lost our way. We've just lost our way. And so those experiences have really taken me, I needed to know how these mechanics, these things that I was seeing shifting in people through the use of frequencies and energy medicines and things like that. I needed to have answers as to how it was possible, so I could explain it to people. And so I dived and so I dug down and down the rabbit holes we go, only to you know, uncover the truth. Funnily enough, that's just made me actually think of something that really catapulted my journey. Was an experience I had when I created this jacket, this beautiful jacket. It's a design on the back of a leather jacket, which is all from parts of, you know, I guess crafty type things, or it's got it's a white rabbit on it. And I share this because I know from that moment in time, I didn't realize how powerful putting that together was, the energetic vibrations behind it, the meaning behind it, the depth within that. And then wearing this jacket, this was a jacket I wore on all my travels. It was very much about do not create limits. And, you know, follow that white rabbit. We're here to explore, we're here to experience. And for me, it's taken me full circle back to, well, remembering exactly who I am and what I'm here to do and what I'm here to help show the world and bring to the world. And that's very much around who we are as light beings, and you know, the light body process, and just getting out of, you know, the world that is around us is not even real. And that, you know, there's so many of us that are looking, especially what's going on at this moment in time, and going, far out, there you've got two groups of people, either those that don't want to know or don't believe in anything that's happening, and then those that are aware. And then even within that, what do you do with the knowledge that you have? And it's for us to know that we're here to create. If you haven't been fitting in this world, it's because you're here to create a new one. And that's what my big, long, convoluted journey has taken me back to, is and now that's where I feel my joy and my passion is how can people understand themselves on a multidimensional level, because that's where it's at.
Yeah, that is where it's at, isn't it? It's just 100%. So freaking powerful. And it's just so many things as you're saying that. I know that people will be resonating with so much of what your story has been. And it's almost like, it's funny because it's like we have to go through a lot of this stuff in order to peel back the layers and come back to who we truly are, like we've said. And I couldn't agree more. We are the creators. We're here. Like, if we felt like we haven't fit in, it's because we're here to create new. And I remember someone saying once, you look at all the stuff that's thrown at us and all that sort of stuff. How powerful must we be? How powerful must we be if there's all this shit coming our way? And like, here we still are.
People have no idea. People absolutely have no idea how powerful we are, because again, we've accepted these teachings, we've accepted, as we go along, and then we're all distracted. We're all about, trying to keep up with the Joneses, or thinking that all that glitters is gold type of a thing. And stuck in those superficial layers of operating, when and it's purposely designed for that. This is the thing, there's false systems within the realm that we live in that are designed to link you in and quantum energy drain you, feed off of you, and then also in doing so absolutely divert you off to the reason that you've come here in this moment in time. We all this journey and everything that took me in through that whole frequency, or the medical, that kind of stuff, it took me again to that real deep and true understanding of energy and frequency and vibration. And then even sort of understanding of that, hang on a minute, like this whole astrological stuff that's all around us, that we have been taught to poo-poo it, or we don't really have a good grasp on or understanding or whatever. This is all the ancient knowledge that that has fallen away, or that we have forgotten. And when we start to understand all the ancient knowledge, and we start to understand ourselves on that energetic vibration, it's actually in through the energetic vibration that we carry that has all the wisdom, it has all the coding, it has all of the cellular memories within. And then that, as you unfold all of that, you start to understand how, that we've been modified, we've been genetically manipulated, there's been caps put on our coding so that we are of a certain lifespan. But then they capitalize on our belief systems as well. So this is a massive thing. What do we believe about what it means to be human? What do we believe about what aging is? We accept that, we're going to have this, 80 to 90 years is all good. Oh, that's because that's what they've told us. And they've told us that because they know if we believe it, we achieve it, right? They understand all of this. The one thing that we don't know as humans, we don't know how powerful our genetic codes are. We don't understand how powerful and sought after our actual DNA blueprint is on a galactic level or on a cosmic level. And these are the things that have come into my understanding or understanding, and knowing that, what we can do in terms of creation, using thought and emotion to create. This is a superpower within itself. And when you go into our galactic friends or other beings that are all around us, say for example, take the Andromedans. They're in awe of the abilities that we have, because they need technology to do what we can do. We literally don't know how powerful we are. And we're taking, we're so submerged in this, funnily enough, we're submerged in the shallow. and they want it that way, so that the reason that there's so much distraction going on in the world at the moment is that we are in a stellar activation cycle. We are in an incredibly important moment in time, right? Where things are happening that we can't even fathom. So they want us distracted, so we don't realize, so we don't achieve the level of consciousness, which is the Christ consciousness, right? That they have sold everybody on to outsource that, when it's actually there's work to be done that we each individually need to do at the moment, in terms of understanding how we operate as beings, as what we are, because of these processes or these events that are happening that we don't even know are taking place.
Yeah. Oh, I love all this so much. And it's about knowing ourselves. Like that's what it comes down to. The more that we know, and that's when it will expand and just go, like, you can't, if you're putting your power out here, you're never going to be able to stand in your power. And if you're not willing to be open-minded to, and of course you've got to be discerning. Like when you were telling your story earlier, and you came from a country town and you expected people to all have big hearts. I had those rose-colored glasses on too, but I wasn't from a country. Well, Adelaide is like a big country town, but
I never ever had imagined that people could be so deceitful, so manipulative, so conniving. Like, I'd never come across individuals like this in my life growing up on the farm. But then why would I? I was always in the bush with the fairies, or actually, and this is again sort of going back to that experience and understanding, and then returning to ourselves. Then we start to realize that where we came in, the grid lines that we came in on, the energetic lines that we spent our formative years and things like that, hold so many indications of who we have been in past lives as well. So there's just so much more to know and to understand, and there's urgency around it. This is where I've come to, in terms of what I speak about and why I speak about it so often, because I know that there's a whole nother war that's going on, not just what we're seeing here on Earth, not just these, events that are occurring, that are just here to set and to divide and conquer us. They know how to manipulate us, all of that. But again, it's just one big freaking distraction, because truly what's going on is there's wars over the stargates. There's stargates that have been repaired. What does this mean for us? This means for us that as we are continuing to be upgraded as humans, through the light sources that we receive, that's also activating it's activating the energy grids within us as well. So it's upgrading our, as I talked about before, the dragon lines or the meridian lines within us. Those are our that's what our holographic template comes from. And importantly within that, it's then if we're having all of these gate wars out in the cosmos, and then also the stargates even on our own Earth here, because there's stargates in Egypt, there's stargates in the Middle East, there's stargates here, there's stargates in Australia, right? All of this, these have been under other control by other beings, or other maleficent, that's the word, isn't it? Those that don't have good intentions. There's grid wars, there's all this sort of stuff that's going on in the invisible realm, which, if you're listening and you're starting to go, she's lost the plot, right? Then I want to share this. The invisible realm is 96% of the world that we live in. Only what we see, everything that's around us, is a smidgen of what is available. We see 1% of the light spectrum. There's so much more. But I feel this is the gravity of everything, and us, the importance of us coming back into ourselves, and to realizing and actualizing, even those words themselves, right? Actualizing our potential. frightens a lot of people,
Mm.
you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
because what is kind of beyond there?
Yeah, and I love it. That I love talking about that stuff. It's like my favorite, well, one of my favorite stuff, because like you just, like you said, it's such a tiny little spectrum that we can see, and like we're just like, you know, even I go like this. I'm like, I wonder what's happening here right now, like you know, because we only see this part of the, but there's so many dimensions and there's so many things going on, and it would be really silly of us to think that we're the only things that exist in the entire universe and cosmos. And so there's just, I mean, I love it, and it's such a potent time, like you said, and there's so many things going on. And when we're talking about layers, like these are layers, like
There's layers and layers, and yeah, exactly. And it has to be. I mean, it took me layers and layers to get to knowing, like, and now it's not even a learning or whatever. It's actually a knowing. It's like, oh yeah, and it's been able to then utilize and to understand that we have these operating systems within us, and it's up to us to learn how to manage that. It's up to us to understand about our energy flow. It's up to us to understand that when you get sucked into these downward spirals, right, where a lot of people are. It's easy at the moment. People are, and there's so much fear in the world. There's so much victimhood going on. That's the base. Some of the base programs go back to abandonment, betrayal, trauma, victimizerhood. It's actually a negative false overlay matrix. It's there to suck people into, so that because if you're being drained there, you can't step into your true power. So it's layering that this stuff is all possible, because once you understand the false nets that are out there in the invisible, like, man, it blows my mind. And I could go on about this all day, every day.
Yeah.
it literally does. It blows my mind. But more so, one of the things I feel that's tied into, and I guess leads people into these bad states of health as well, is this misconception about death. That's where a lot of it sits as well. What happens when we die? There's a misconception. Well, easy. I can share you a little experience that I had the other day. I had this out of body experience. It was insane. But before I do, like, one thing that I always share with people to help people understand, this is part of it. We are 99.9999999999999% nothing. Empty space, right? Like, and so therefore, when this physical shell leaves this world, when we die, you've got 0.000000000000001% of you remains, like nothing, dust, a little bit of shell, right? This is the physical, or the materialization of us in here is the end state of consciousness, like, but this isn't who we are. And so, energetically, we return into source. We return to this, there's a whole process that we undergo, where we, as we energetically it is a transferring or transform. We transform out of this earth experiment that we're in, and we come out the other side, and we're all going to realize that, A, we shouldn't have taken it so seriously. B, oh shit, I didn't do half the things I had on my mission list to do. And that it's just a blip. We're here for a very short period of time. But part of, for us to actually experience here is to learn how to, to really stand in terms of what we're able to realize we can create. And we can create it all. So why can't we create a better world?
Absolutely. High five to that.
one that serves us. And and this is why I speak so much about the medical realm and things, and in particular, chronic health and things like that. the medical, it doesn't serve us. It's a system that doesn't serve us. So why do we continue to utilize it in the way that we do? So I try and empower people in those ways, and whether it's knowledge of what's happening to them physically, so they can actually go in and not get caught, not get sold down a river of something that they don't have, that they've been told they have. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole kettle of fish too, that one. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's just our world is such a fascinating place. This whole experience, once we can come out of under that, that rock or whatever has tumbled us and set us on these sort of spirals and trajectories of maybe what we didn't have in mind for our own lives. But as you said earlier, like, all of this is to bring us to these points where we are at the moment. Everything had to happen in the way that it did, or we wouldn't be where we are right now. And there's that acceptance within that, as we journey through that. So I love that stuff. I suppose because I've felt, as many I know that are probably listening, are, as you said, are able to resonate with this. But once we've felt the way that we never ever want anyone else to feel, now I'd never ever want anyone to feel the level of shame or the level of that darkness that I had experienced. And so, you just want to go out there and help people be open to so much more, and particularly that's a passion for me. Get them off the petrochemicals, get them out of this a false reality that's not serving them. So there's so much better we could do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love everything that you're saying. It's just like, I feel like I could talk to you for days about all of this sort of stuff, because there's so many tangents as well. Like, it's just so
that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I just stick to a subject.
Yeah.
Like, but it makes me think about this. Or it ties in through here. So
yeah. And you were talking before about the experience you had as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Could you say that? Because
I will share that. I will share this, because this was something that, I've done astral traveling before. I can remember going through a few astral travels, or actually when I was learning to do that. And this was part of my journey of being able to expand into the multidimensional being that I am. And I learned how to astral travel, and there was one particular that I knew. I was like, this shit's real, because half of the time when I was going through this, like, is this even really happening? Like, just stay in the creation, to stay in the right brain, or stay in the imagination. Side note, imagination is the imaginal. It's the point between the subconscious and the conscious, and this is the astral door, right? So we need to daydream. We need to be in imaginative state so that we can get into those spaces. However, so I'm in this astral travel, and I was seeing things that were, it was a guided astral travel. So I was seeing things that before the person who was guiding it was saying them, and then they would be sharing what they were seeing and what, where they were, the journey they were going through. And I was like, holy shit, that's the same stuff as what I'm seeing. So I knew this is when I started to really trust in what I was seeing. And in that place, I had sort of kind of had that sense of being out of body, but not massively, because I was still kind of afraid of, I guess, a little bit of fear within that, of the uncontrolling. Am I going to come back? But I've had a couple of profound experiences recently. One was when we journeyed down the South Island, and we had, I know, it was just I couldn't even imagined what we were going to stumble upon. But a big one for me was when we spent time in the Valley of the Teachers, and where we were surrounded by the Waisaha, the Patiparehe, they're there, that you can feel them, you can sense them, and I was really struggling, where do I fit in with all of this? And so there was a moment to hone into it, I was sitting under this awning, and I just got this, being gifted this beautiful flute, which was one of the original flutes. It's got the 3 holes that line up with the Orion's belt. So it's all very made from, the take you back through the Waitaha traditions and things like that. And I was on my own, and it was pissing down with rain. And we're at the base of the mountain, right, of where the original Waitaha lived. And it was dark, and there's thunder and stuff, and I'm thinking, I've got these 3 dogs that I'm looking after, and I'm going, well, I'll get onto this flute, I'll practice this flute, because it's really hard to play. So I thought, well, what else can I do? I'm going to practice this flute. And so I started playing it, and after about 10 minutes of playing it, I had this huge, this voice that was like, okay, now put it down and see what you've done. And I was like, what? Okay. So I put this down, and I looked outside into this darkness, and this is where I saw all of there was just thousands of beings, right, in the bush, and they were there, and I got taken into their world, and I got shown, all through the area, like through the Castle Hill area, where and how they used to have their houses, and how it was all made in with the ground and what have you. But there was a big obelisk that used to be there, that was removed. They removed it before, as you know, because there's a big history behind that. But I got taken through all this. It was incredible. It was just absolutely insane in terms of, it was a flyby. That's what I say. It was like,
so is it in your mind's eye? Is this happening in your mind's eye?
No, I was there. I was somewhere else. Like,
totally.
It was a combination of knowing I was grounded where I was, but I was also taken and transported into another world.
Wow.
And so I could feel like it was like my spirit was doing this flyby over the area. It was really profound, and that's for me where I really started to know more about myself as well, because I was shown that part of my soul's journey is that, I was one of those one of those patiparehi that was sharing the knowledge and the wisdom with the Waitaha. And there was just it was so profound. And it answered, this kind of, I guess, this deep wanting to know, where do I fit in the whole plan of it, and linking into, what we were doing at the time. So it was a really profound moment in time. So that was one of them, and that happened a couple of times, even within this, the 2 hours I think I was left by myself, because I'd pick up the flute again and I would create that again. And in one of those other creations of into that energetic space, I actually knew that I had been teleported somewhere else, yet the surrounding was familiar, so that it wasn't, it didn't freak me out or whatever. But I also, like, in my mind, because I knew I was somewhere else, you could feel it, the whole energy shifted, and I stayed where I was because I was afraid that if I got up to look outside, I would find myself in a completely different land. And I was like, there was this, like, am I even going to get back? So that's where it stopped. That experience stopped. It was crazy. And with hindsight, what I realized I was doing with the flute was I'd created my own DMT. So if you think about when we start to understand the power of breath work, and it's super oxygenation for one, right? Number two, you're actually creating a lot of intrathoracic pressure, so that the the electrical charge that is in the cerebral spinal fluid, or in the essence of us, ends up making its way up and placing pressure on the pineal. And so then the pineal crystals all spark up, and now you've created yourself, your full-on Taurus field, but on a whole other level. And that's when I realized. I was like, oh fuck, because I don't know if a lot of people know, and I love sharing this information. This is like a real gems gem.
Gems gem, love that.
A gems gem. So is that melatonin, once you transmute it, once, twice, three times, four times, you got your own DMT. And again, this links into the whole pharmacy and the Western medical realm, and why I encourage people to move away from it and trust in themselves and go into plant medicine and into energetic alignments and things like that, is because everything that you can put into your system, you create. That's why they've made the synthetic version of it, because you have receptors for all of them. Why do you have receptors for all of them if you don't have your own, if you can't create it yourself? We create it all. We create everything. So yeah, that was really profound, that experience. And then just the other night, the sun was out the gate, and I sincerely hope and people are having other people are having these experiences as well, because yeah, this was one that I needed to not shut down, because I could feel there was something huge coming, and I just knew I had to talk myself through, don't close it down. And it started off with just this, I could feel this energy that was all down the one side of me, and ended up having a bit of a coughing fit, which again created a little, obviously then helped expanding things. And I came upstairs, I was hanging out with Wade, came upstairs, and it was so intense and so profound that I had to turn the lights off. I couldn't have any extra stimulation. I was like, oh, that's not feeling right. So then I sit up on my bed, and I don't even know, it was just the weirdest thing. I sat completely upright, tipped my head back, let it hang there. And I'm going, why am I doing this? I don't even know why I'm doing this, but this is what I felt I needed to do. And then all of a sudden, after being kind of hanging in there for, I don't know how long for, but I felt this right through the crown chakra. I felt this like pouring of it. You could feel it. It was like a liquid. It was a liquid plasma, and it came all the way through, right through the crown chakra, right through, the brain. I could feel it running through my spinal cord all the way down. And it was just this, just huge light, like liquid light. And then it kind of cracked open from the inside, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I find myself, and as I'm having to go here, don't shut it down, don't shut it down, don't shut it down, because you want this, you want to go where we're going, right? And then I find myself in this, just like I'm literally in it. I can feel myself in it. I knew my physical body was still, where it was, but I also was aware I was no longer where I was. So I felt like I was in this huge like tunnel of light, and it all then became, it all turned into more of like this kaleidoscope. I could see everything coming at me, kaleidoscope sort of stuff coming in. And I was taken all the way up to the, the top, and then all the way down, right and through, and these ever-changing abstract shapes, and like grid lines that this massive light was going through. So to take all the way down, connecting in through the Earth's grid, where I felt I had been there before, but it wasn't until I had been there this time that I was like, wow, now I'm, you're expansive. You're realizing that you are a part of all of this. You are an intricate part of this tapestry. And then I was taken back, and this is when the whole Merkaba field became so much more real to me as well, and I could start to see how you can, I was controlling all of this. So a lot of the stuff you do when you astral travel, this is on a different level, because I was in it. I wasn't just, working in this creation space. And it flew me up. I end up spinning up like lightning speed. You're just flying through these like big cables and tunnels of light along the way, and then all of a sudden, came out the other side, and it was like I stepped through this doorway. It's fucking bizarre. Fucking bizarre. And I'm going, and then I like immediately look back, and I just burst. Like, this is when I cracked out laughing. I was like, you are kidding me, right? This is where I got this experience of going, it's a blip in time. Don't take anything, don't take this shit so seriously, right? Don't get distracted on your mission down there, because we are here to, there are things we're here to do, our individual soul missions, right? So I got this whole experience, and then it went into understanding, where our stargates are, and when we this is part of the whole learning to upgrade our own grid system as well, because we exit out certain parts and we can travel through into all these other universes, galaxies, whatever, through these portals, through these stargates. So this is part of what I was showing as well, like these super highways that are beyond that. And so I'm going through this, and I'm thinking, because I overanalyze everything, past life stuff, right? Analyze everything to the hilt, wrote shit down. I still do it. Doesn't serve me, still do it. But anyway, so I'm flying through these star streams, like literally. It was so amazing. It was like, take me back. But I'm halfway through this. I'm going through it. I'm aware I'm going through this, and I'm going, do I need to get up and write this shit down? Like, am I going to remember all this? Am I ever going to be able to come back? Can I need to be able to describe what's happened? Am I going to have to get this pen and paper out? And I got this clear, whatever guardian or hiring being that was with me was like, you can come back here anytime. You just have to, think about it, and you'll be right back there. So I was like, okay, phew. And so, yeah, I went through this whole, got taken and shown so much in terms of what's beyond here. And that if we only, for me, what it did, it was, once I came back into my body after this profound experience, it just made me realize that, we're so stuck into things that do not matter in this reality here. And there's so much incredible awesomeness that's, out and available into these other dimensions that our wings have been clipped on. But anyway, so I come out of this experience, and it was just incredible. It was so crazy. And I did go back there. I went back there the next day. So I was like, well, I'm going to go visit back again. Give me some more of that. I want it. I love that. I would rather spend my time in there than and sometimes in this reality. But and so I did, but it was different. To the point that I didn't go through the whole process of that whole tunnel and the cleansing and our souls are fragmented. So like when we die from here and we go into this, this big light, right? It's about our soul being able to be cleansed and to be able to be put back together, all those pieces where we've been fragmented. So because I didn't go through that on the second night, I was sort of bummed out at the start. So I was like, well, I want to fly through all of these, these tunnels and things again. And I was told that, you just needed to be shown that that's what happens, but you don't need to go through that every time you want to go back into the space. So yeah, it was incredibly profound. And I just puts things in perspectives. It was awesome. It was such a cool experience. But again, a layering to get to that, because there's once we understand that, with this power that we have, there's so much responsibility that comes with that. So yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just like, that's just awesome. I think that's just it's so expansive and just bloody, and that experience, and just to know we can go to that place anytime.
You can. And what we hold, and this is something that I love sharing with people, is helping them to understand, where have you come from? What gateways have you come through? What encryption codes do you hold within you that are linked to, you know, other times, other civilizations, all the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience that you actually have within you. And understanding that alone, which is found through like all of the fixed star placements, it's found through your alignments and all of that, and understanding how to decipher through the coding. And then you can yeah, like I said, then all this earthly shit is like
yeah,
not
so
matter.
yeah.
Because there's, you know, so much more beyond. But
so
and that's what I love.
And I love it too. I love so much this conversation and everything that you're sharing. It's just so awesome. So like, can people work with you to help discover that? Are you more teaching people to discover it within themselves? Like how does that all work?
Yeah, this again, my space is open for all sorts, right? Because I feel like I'm a bridge in a lot of ways, for those that are stuck in court and trapped in these lower operating systems and structures that we have in our society that do not serve us, and that are purpose built to keep you where you are and for you to, you know, to drain and all that kind of stuff. So I have this bridge. So I work with people that are, you know, trying to improve their health or to get off petrochemicals. That's one area and field that I work in with people. Yet I find like what seems to be coming in at the moment more and brings me more joy and passion as well is helping people to uncover who they really are. You know, and to get out of the programming that they have to see that, you know, that isn't you, that's something that's encoded within you to keep you where you are. And you actually have this ability to reclaim over, you know, the energetic based programming that we emanate. So yeah, I help people to get to that point, to expand their knowledge around the world that they live in, but most importantly, actually, the light body process. That's just where everything has taken me. And then also, you know, opening that up into what is happening, as I was saying, on these bigger levels in terms of our energy grids, in terms of the planet grids, the universal grids, the, you know, everything about us is shifting and changing. And as I mentioned before, there's urgency around that. This is the most important thing that we can be doing at the moment, is understanding ourselves and how and on that operating level, because, you know, our DNA itself is designed to capture so much more of the dimensions that are around, but we've been operating on 4 cylinders instead of 12 for a long time. So this is all what's happening and what's shifting and changing within us and within the reality that we live in. But we have to actualize it ourselves. And so this is what I help people in understanding that process, and to getting to that point where you can fly around the cosmos and do whatever, you know, and have these other out-of-body experiences and experience more of yourself and who we truly are. So yep, that's what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And for people who maybe, like, I mean, a lot of people will know about the light body, but maybe there's more to it that you can talk to about that, like for people to get more of an understanding around that. Is there something you can kind of bring in on that?
Around the light body. Oh man, where do you start with that? You know, I actually find most people that come into they might have a little bit of knowledge about it. They might have a bit of an understanding about it, but they're still really stuck in the actual physical structure, or the elemental structure of ourselves. I don't even know where to start with
Yeah,
that,
it's
to
a
be
big one,
honest.
isn't it? Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, fill in the blanks. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of half truths around it too. If
Mm.
we talk about chakras, we talk about everybody knows chakras,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a big thing around chakras. And chakras, yes, they are the portal that interconnected in terms of our access into the other realms. However, it's not all that is, and in particular, when it comes to healing, you'll get you'll get kind of a temporary sort of a benefit from working in that energetic space, but actually to do the more permanent, the more long-term ability to restore or shift timelines and things like that, it comes down to a deeper inner workings. And it comes back to that tree of life grid. Now, even within that, there's you can be misled through, there's the 10 tree of life, and then there's the 12 tree of life. So it's sort of it's understanding there's so much bits of information out there, but not all of it is accurate. So yeah, discernment is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know what else to
Yeah.
say about that, because it's such a again, another one of those layering techniques. But at the end of the day, it comes back to, if you want to simplify it, to energy, frequency, and vibration. It comes down to the energetic signature that we have, which is what? It's a sine wave. Right? Which is what, when people say that we are punished for our sins, it's actually the sine wave. It's the frequency you're on. This is what we are created is what we experience and bring into our world. So I see you can break it down like into crazy levels. Depends on how deep you want to go.
But to your point as well, it's so true. We are energetic beings, made up of energy, frequency, vibration, and I mean even like even the table that this computer's sitting on is like at the base of it. It's all moving around.
Everything's alive, and this is
Yeah.
another indoctrination, like what we believe to be, that we assign a meaning to. It's a meaningless world. We assign meanings to everything. So do we assign, we're taught also that things like computers, tables, whatever, inanimate objects, that they're not real or they're not alive. They are still energy. They are still an electromagnetic frequency. And it's understanding that on that level, it's going in through the depth of it all, and then how we resonate with the the celestial bodies that are coming in. They're not planets like we think they are. The planes, you think about the T is a symbol. The T is a symbol for energy flowing. And so all the planes of the cosmos or whatever that come in, it all resonates within us. It's all part of who we are. We are the cosmos. And I guess really for people to understand that on a knowingness level, again, there's no energy held in these three-dimensional structures that are presented within us, because it's not all that is. And but there is as I said several times, there is an actual urgency at the moment for people to undergo this process, undergo this light body process, to be able to be activating, dormant templates that are within us, because it's part of what's going on out in the cosmos. And it is really much linked to what's happening in the time matrix, and what's happening obviously then how that translates into our physical realm as well. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that people probably aren't ready to hear. So but that's sort of where we go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so true. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. That's probably a whole other podcast. Absolutely.
It is.
I'm so loving chatting to you. Before we wrap up, is there anything else on your heart that you want to share right now? Because I looked at the time, I forgot that I started half an hour earlier than I normally do. So
I know,
I could
we've
chat
been
to you all
going.
day long, Gem.
We could talk. I know, that's my problem.
Yeah, I
The
love
long
it. I
line of
love
descendants of talkers.
it. Oh.
Um, ah, what's on my heart at the moment? I really look at what's going on around us. You know, that's part of a really big part of my world as well, is trying to create and pave a way forward, that leads us out of the darkness, out of those places that, you know, we look around and we see the state of our world, and how it's so upside down, it's so topsy-turvy, it's so unstable, and I don't know. We've not seen times like this before, you know, and well, not in our lifetime that we that many of us can recall or remember. And it just, what's on my heart is that there's so many more important things for us to be placing our attention on at the moment. And that we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of where we're placing our attention, where our energy is going, and to see beyond what's placed in front of us, because, you know, it's not the reality, it's not the truth of what is going on. But if we don't do something about it, you know, if we don't step in, stand up, speak out, you know, lead the way, shine the light on the darkness, but also on the path forward as well. If we're not prepared to do that because we're afraid of what people might think of us, or it might not come out right, or, you know, whatever it is. And that is a big thing. If we're not going to step into that space and stand up and be the leaders that we're all designed to be, what kind of world are we leaving for our future generations? This isn't something that I ever really considered when I was younger. But now I feel like the most important thing for us is to actually really consider, every choice that we make is leading us towards that future. So what is the world that we want to see? So that's really my message to anyone who's listening, is to look at all the little things that, you know, the little changes, the little actions, the things that we can do, the opportunities we get to expand, to you know, to shine our lights. It's more needed now than ever. So fuck what anyone thinks. You know, you're probably going to lose a few friends along the way or whatever, but you know, that's half the problem. We've all sat quiet for way too long. We wouldn't be in the mess that we're in now if it wasn't for, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that people have just sort of gone along, too tired, too distracted, too exhausted, you know, don't feel that they can make a change. We can change more than what we realize. So I just encourage everybody to find that place within their world.
That is so well said. I love it so much, Gem. I love it so much. Thank you so
for
much
having me.
Oh, look, it's just awesome. How can people find you, by the way? Where are you living most online that people can go over and
your best place to hit me is Insta. Yeah.
Insta.
Although I'm so shadow banned, censored, you know, whatever. But yeah, you might be asked if you're sure you want to follow me. I don't know if they're doing that anymore, but yeah, hit me up on Insta. Gemma Gee, 333 is my handle, and yeah, I'm open for anybody stepping out, reaching out. Yeah, say hi.
Say hi. Definitely say hi.
Say
You
hi.
are so bloody awesome, Gemma. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you at home for listening and tuning into this awesome chinwag. It was so much fun. So I appreciate you being here too. If you haven't already, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. Leave a review, leave a comment. Love hearing from you. Gem will love hearing from you too. So Gemma, just thanks again for being on the show. You are amazing. And I'm so grateful that we could have this conversation today.
Thank you. I would just want to finish that off with saying, you know, thank you for what you do as well, because, you know, this is a perfect example of stepping out and shining light for people and showing a way. So I really appreciate you and the work that you do and what you bring to the world. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks, Gem.
Mwah, much love.